Hey everyone, my name is Julian Vaca, and I am joined by two-thirds of the Nether region, Cris Cunningham and Josh Childs, two incredibly talented filmmakers, actors, just all around good people. We're super excited to be talking to you today about a forthcoming project that these guys have had in the works for a really long time. And before we get too much into it, we thought it would be a good idea for Josh to maybe give you guys watching a sort of elevator pitch, a log line about the movie, what it's about, and then maybe we can back up and just kind of talk about how this thing all started. So Josh, why don't you give us that elevator pitch?
Sure, yeah. Basically, Squat is about an agoraphobic graphic novelist who has suffered a tragic loss of his family, and he is content to believe that there's a force field around his house, and all of that is challenged when a mysterious cowboy is able to come into his house and refuse to leave. And it's a sci-fi comedy.
So if that doesn't hook those of us watching right now, I don't know what will. You just leave,
Right.
Stop watching. Like if you're not all in at this point, just I don't know what to tell you. That's great.
Well, we know what we like,
That's
and that was the whole sort of motivation for working on the script. So
great. Well, thank you for that. So why don't we back up, and Cris, maybe you could give those watching some kind of background on the genesis of the story, kind of how this all thing started, because you and Josh have been toying with this idea for years now, right?
Yeah, it's been a couple years in the making. Even though it's a sci-fi comedy, as you hear, it's kind of born out of grief. The plot line is, and that's literally how we came up with the concept. My mom had passed away on Christmas Eve 2015, and it halted me creatively for like a year. And in that same duration of time, incidentally, Josh unfortunately lost his father as well, as did Jeremy, the third component of the Nether region family here. And so the same exact type thing happened to him. It halted Josh as well creatively. And sometime in there, kind of at the end of about a year, I guess, of what Josh had been going through, I was just finally crawling out of this funk. And he said, I got this idea. And it was about a squatter who took over this agoraphobic's house. And I can't remember all the details back then, and it's changed so much since then. But this project, I'd say we're super passionate about it for those reasons. Like when something so tragic happens to you, sometimes it turns into this, like that coal analogy that, it gets crushed into something that becomes a diamond. And I feel like literally reading the script maybe yesterday, and I'm like texting Josh, oh my gosh, our script is so good. And it feels weird that we wrote this thing that I feel so strongly about, where I'm laughing in one scene to stitches, and then I'm almost crying just reading it, going, how did we come up with this? This is so good. Like, it's so good.
Yeah.
And yeah, but that's kind of my experience. Josh, I guess you probably have some other, maybe you could fix some of if I got anything wrong there.
No, I think generally that's spot on. I think one of the things when we started hammering on the story, we I think everybody realizes how universal tragedy is, how universal loss is, and we weren't breaking any new ground by kind of approaching it, that concept in our filmmaking craft. But we're such sci-fi nerds and comedy dorks that's the default setting was kind of that way. Now I think there's definitely a Venn diagram with Cris and I on comedy and sci-fi and drama and where all that stuff lands.
Totally.
But this and then when you add Jeremy into the mix, and he wasn't a part of the initial script because he was on set for Preacher season 3. He was playing one of the villains for that. And so our plan was let's create something so when Jared gets back, let's pitch it to him, and then we'll follow right on the heels of his amazing AMC run of his TV show.
Yeah.
We did not move that fast, and grief does weird things to your creativity even after you're kind of figuring things out. So it was a much longer process.
let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So obviously you and Cris, who were both, processing and grieving throughout the story creation of this whole, the script squat. How did grief inform, create barriers, inspire? How did it impact
You know,
your
you know what's
respective
funny?
style?
I think, like, if you let me just speak into that a little bit, we would sit on my back porch. We'd have a, beer or bourbon or something and just sit out there on my back porch till the wee hours of the night, for, over the course of 2 years. It wasn't every week or anything, but there was a long stint where it was every week. And I remember we're pacing around, we're both up, and just kind of, there was this revelation moment that I'll never forget. And I don't want to talk about it because it'd be too, spoiler, it'd be a spoiler. But I remember saying something to the effect of, like, that's the film that I want to make. And Josh and I were in conversation, kind of going, well, in Hollywood they wouldn't do it this way. But when you are creating something that's so personal and so exciting, from like that, I don't want to say grief is exciting, but when it's that personal, but you feel excited about this project because it's really funny and it's really coming together nicely, and you make a decision whether you should go commercial versus do the film that you want, I've got to say that touching feeling inside of you that's like intuitively going, no, this would honor the death of my family the best. And so we have these strange, bizarre ideas that to this day we're still like in love with. We're like, that's the movie. And Josh, I remember you going, that's the movie I want to make. That's it. And I'm like,
well,
yeah,
he was even, that's the movie I want to see. Like,
yeah.
It was like, that's what I would rather see, that movie, than, what we've seen already. I would say that also, as weird as, I mean, we've obviously talked about, this autobiographical nature of it just in our spirit. There are things that, even though it's a sci-fi comedy, there are specifics in here that are kind of plucked and pulled right out of our own. And again, I don't want to do spoilers, but some stuff that's kind of directly, the actions the characters take that are direct sort of correlations to what we had done in the process.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, let me ask you guys this now. So you say you've been working on it for a couple of years. What was the catalyst moment for you guys to both kind of look in the mirror and realize, you know what, it's time. We got to walk away from the script phase, and if we're going to make this movie, we got to just make it. What was that moment where you both realized, okay, look, we got to just do this thing?
Josh, you want me to take that one since?
Well, let me set you up.
Okay.
Let me preface it, because being in this pandemic, everybody was kind of confined, and I had this amazing urge to kind of do a push on creativity that resulted in just me eating bags of Skittles and watching movies till the middle of the night. So until finally I just got to a point, I was like, I gotta do something, because I'm just like, it wasn't you know how it is. It wasn't a vacation for people, right? It's not a break. All the stress was still there, even though there was no work to do. And so I started forcing myself. The baton was on me to finish a draft. And I started just pushing through this draft. And it was literally maybe a half hour or 45 minutes one day. And then the next day, maybe 20 minutes, just making myself get back to that. And I think that this was something out of our hands, right? I think this is one of those divine moments where God's like, okay, I need you to do this, because what was waiting that I didn't know about and Cris didn't know about was, I'm handing the baton to Cris now to finish the story.
Okay. So because COVID, running a video production company, things are kind of falling flat. And so we have a rental property, my wife and I do, and it came time that we decided, okay, we were fine for a time. We didn't know how long it was going to last. And then it pushed past like 4 or 5 months. And then we're like, we have to sell this thing. And so what was great is that we're in a market, thankfully, that we've gained a lot of equity on the place. And, it's not like millions of dollars or something weird like that. It's enough for us to go, okay, that can cover us for a fair bit. And we didn't want to sell it, but we did. And when Rachel told me, she said, when we sell this, I want you to take $20,000 of this equity, which is not it's a big chunk of the equity, and it's not a small amount of money for our family. So for her to do that, and I kind of laughed and said $20,000, and she goes, make a movie or don't. Like, stop bitching about it though. Like, this is my version of it. She would soften that a little bit, but literally, like that was the moment we had. She goes, don't talk to me about it next year. Then if you're not if you can't make this happen with this small budget, then maybe you need to get on with your life and to go do something else. And so, I mean, I had to reckon with that. It was probably 24 hours of my reckoning with it, going, can this actually be done? And so I called Josh, and that's where the stories meet, I guess, where Josh was and where I was. And I remember you getting kind of nervous. You said, my hands are shaking about the thought of this. I think we're making a movie. And there's just such trepidation. So that then becomes the next struggle point for us. It's not because what happened was Josh, he was on that next draft. And I said, look, why don't you, because you're directing it, you take the next subsequent drafts with a lot of notes from me. And then he also, we kind of doled it out to some other people we know, like, and trust when it comes to storytelling. And so we've got a landslide of notes back, and it's become like it's 2 or 3 drafts later since that moment.
Yeah.
What was that, like a month and a half ago, maybe? I mean, this is like Holland.
Yeah. I do want to pop in, like the first run of that was Jeremy giving the script to him. He had not seen it at this point. We had pitched the general concept and everything. Giving it to him, and he had a lot of great things to say, but had some big challenging notes on the script that he was right about. And I think it cut like 20 pages off the script, and it leaned it up, and it was really nice.
Yeah.
So at that point in time, I felt like that's when we started. I had shared the script a couple of times, but that's when we really started like sharing it with for notes that were a lot more in depth, people who would dig in deeper than just, oh, great job, or you finished it.
That's really awesome. I would imagine that the 3 of you guys who you've been creating hilarious, interesting content under your Nether region banner on YouTube for years now, I would imagine that you guys have probably hit a really good stride creatively in terms of telling a story and then being able to come in and challenge one another on story bits, on plot points, I would imagine it's a pretty cool experience to have worked with each other for so long and be able to complement one another in that respect.
It's really weird because the films that I love are not the films that Josh loves, but I love the films that Josh loves as well. Like, I love those films, but they aren't my favorite, and vice versa. And it becomes this weird, like, I think we collide in such a weird way that meshes together well. Like, we just kind of collide and it mixes great. Like, it's a strange, I know some of the stuff, like, I'm starting to predict the things that you would like now. And I'm like going, oh, he wouldn't like that if I did this. And so it's interesting. I think we collide quite well. I don't think this script if I wrote this on my own, is even close to as powerful personally. I don't.
Sure. Yeah. Vice versa. I think that between Jer and Cris and I talking about that Venn diagram, there's that spot in the middle. And then whenever you start bringing in, some of the crew, like our DP, Andy Dunsing, same thing. Like, it's all, and you for that matter, like everybody, all the Venn diagram in the middle, it's not like creating a smaller space to be enjoyed. It's whittling down what's so great about it to this kind of perfect morsel that's the best of all of us, as opposed to the compromise of all of us or something. It really is like, when Cris bobs and I weave, even working on the script, it's nice that now it's like, oh, I don't take that for granted. Just because I want to bob is like, oh, but that's not necessarily the best idea. Let's see what happens if we weave instead, and it becomes, like you said, bigger, greater than any one of us.
Why am I weave and you're bob? Or wait, are you bob and I'm weave?
See, that's why.
Cris, it's semantics.
You can't even keep them straight. That's why.
Well, listen, just one more thing I'd love to ask you guys as we kind of close out here, and not to put you on the spot, but what's like 1 to 2 words, after the movie's done, production's wrapped, post-production's wrapped, the movie's out there, audiences have seen it. What's like 1 to 2 words that describe the takeaway that you hope for eventual audiences? And Josh, maybe we'll start with you and then go to Cris. Just a 1 to 2 word emotional or some kind of takeaway that you hope audience have from Squat.
Mm-hmm. Whew. 1 to 2 words, man. I'm gonna probably break your rules a little bit. Here's what I would say. I feel like sci-fi has done a lot for me. It's been such a great way to explore deeper, more meaningful, thoughtful things in a safe environment. Sci-fi and comedy have both been a safe place for this. Are you guys still there? Sorry, somebody just tried to beep in. It's been a safe place for that. So my hope is that somebody would look at this and feel like this is representative of a safe place for them to, maybe not necessarily, I mean, maybe grief, but maybe beyond that, just a safe place to, I don't know, maybe rephrase that. Is there a tighter way to say that? Let me see. I don't know. Does that make sense? That's
it does actually.
A safe space to explore deeper thoughts.
Right.
Yeah.
While being entertained.
While being
just you know what? I'll say this. I'll say this, something you said to me yesterday, Josh, to help you along with that, or help the audience understand what you're meaning. If we're talking about a topic like human trafficking or something, how sci-fi can make that tangible and touchable if you do that in the right way, even in a comedy format, like it can actually allow it to be accessible. Because when we get to a topic of that degree, and we're not talking about that in this film, you just expressed to me, if we were ever going to do something on that, sci-fi helps people see it and understand it in a way that, just makes it accessible. So in this sense, I think that's what you're trying to say somewhat as well.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, and this is not what you're saying, but I want to clarify, there's nothing funny about trafficking, nothing like, that's not what we're saying. But
yeah.
This is a safe environment to address issues that people are afraid to talk about or address. Whether that's grief or this personal to everybody at some point in time in their life, or something else, it's some of the best ways to explore that stuff. And
that was the least succinct 2 words I've ever heard.
I know you were part of that too. Like
I did. I messed it all up. So like the 2 words that come to my mind are literally like hilarious, or they leave with laughter and transformation if possible. And I don't want to be so arrogant to assume that, but transformational hilarity. I don't know. Like that's what I would hope for. And again, I don't want to be so arrogant to believe that that's what somebody walks away with, a transformational moment, but it sure would be awesome that if it would help them come out of a creative funk because of grief or something, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys humoring me with that question. I just think it's always kind of a fun, take a step back, kind of, think through what this story is that you guys are trying to bring to the screen, and, not to put the cart before the horse, but what's that eventual takeaway that you hope audience have. So I really appreciate you guys humoring me on that one.
On that, guys, I do hope that, the evolution of the Nether region, we hope it keeps going, because the sketch comedy stuff is great, and I don't think we've abandoned that. Like, we'd love to go back to that. But what I do hope for, like, to be selfish now, to put it back on, like, what I want, to have people of like mind who look at this project, oh, this is something that I like. This is the type of stuff I like, and for them to know that, to build that together and go, look, we have more, we want to do more, we want to share more, we have more stories, there's a lot more, there's endless things to talk about and endless ways to do it in sci-fi, in micro budget to, small budget to medium budget to large budget to all the money in the world.
No, that's great. I appreciate that, Josh. And I appreciate you too, Cris. This is definitely something, and obviously I'm biased because I'm, involved in a very small role, but I'm, very excited to be a part of this journey with you guys, and excited for everyone watching this right now, this interview, to see the eventual film come to fruition. I bet you guys are just thrilled that it's finally happening. It's actually happening. So as we close out, as we close out, thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't already, make sure you like this Facebook page, follow us on Twitter. It's at Nether_region. On Instagram, we're the Nether region, just one word. But most importantly, head over to thenetherregion.com, which redirects to their YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe if you're not subscribing, and hit the notifications button so that everybody here watching can get notified the second we drop some content, because we are going to be dropping all of the content. Right, Cris? Right, Cris?
Did we give
It's
Julian
hot.
a
We don't
role?
want to burn ourselves.
Josh, did we give Julian a role? I didn't.
Why am I assuming that I have a role?
He's in it? I had no idea.
We'll talk later. We'll
talk. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Maybe we should end there.
Maybe
okay,
he
guys.
can direct. We'll let him
And on
direct.
that note.
Yeah, maybe. Okay.